I have a clip here for you of Democratic Representative Jerry Nadler during another one of these Republican political stunt hearings that was this time in the House Judiciary Committee and was coined as an oversight of the DOJ hearing, a chance to grill Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, on largely Hunter Biden and all the different issues with Hunter Biden. And I'll talk about what the narrative is we've gone over in the past when it comes to how Merrick Garland connects to Hunter Biden. But before getting to that, Jerry Nadler is going to go through so nicely what the impact of these types of meaningless, very distraction-oriented hearings and stunts is, and the other things we could be spending time talking about. And if the GOP had it their way, we wouldn't be talking, at least the House GOP, those organizing these hearings, we wouldn't be talking about all these important things, even just as it relates to the DOJ. We could have only more meaningful conversations about the DOJ, and there are plenty there to discuss. But instead, it's Hunter Biden, Hunter Biden, Hunter Biden. And so then before watching the clip, the context is the Republicans in the House right now have the idea, are pushing the concept that Merrick Garland, in his role as Attorney General, interfered in some fashion with the investigation into Hunter Biden by the Trump-appointed U.S. Attorney David Weiss. He's been overseeing this investigation for some time now, and Joe Biden, even though he didn't have to, left David Weiss in his position of authority whenever Joe Biden took over because of his ambition to not interfere because it's his son. And so now we got word that David Weiss is going to be bringing even more aggressive charges against Hunter Biden than is normal for these types of potential charges as it relates to a gun charge, him lying on a form saying he wasn't addicted to drugs whenever he was to obtain a firearm. And so still the belief from Republicans in the House is that Merrick Garland interfered with David Weiss's investigation and didn't give him the authority that he needed, even though David Weiss, the subject of the theory, has written to this committee and said, no, if I needed extra authority, special counsel status, I can get it. I just don't need that right now. I can bring charges where I want to bring them. Merrick Garland has given me full authority. And then Merrick Garland does, whenever he requests for it, give him special counsel status. Now David Weiss has that, and he's bringing these charges that, again, I'm not saying I have a big issue with it, but just happen to be more aggressive for these types of potential charges based on other similar circumstances in other situations. So bizarre. But with all that being said, here is Jerry Nadler taking a moment out of the grilling Merrick Garland about Hunter Biden to say this.
With that, I would yield to the gentleman from New York, the ranking member, for an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, at the outset, let me make two comments. One, just about every assertion you made in your opening statement has been completely refuted by witnesses who have testified before this committee. Two, far from being favored, many commentators have noted that people accused of simple gun possession while under the influence of a drug, when that gun was not used in the commission of a crime, are rarely, if ever, prosecuted the way Hunter Biden is being prosecuted. Mr. Chairman, one of this committee's most important duties is conducting oversight of the Department of Justice. We are called upon to ensure that the DOJ uses the enormous amount of power it is granted in a fair, just manner that respects the civil and human rights of all Americans. The Attorney General of the United States oversees issues that affect the lives of each and every American. Violent crime, drug trafficking, attacks on our civil rights, threats to our national security, and environmental crimes all fall under his purview. That is why we regularly request that he or she appear before this committee to speak about the work the department is doing for the welfare of the country. This is how we ensure that the department stays accountable to the American people. But if it were up to the Republicans, Americans would hear nothing about any of these substantive issues today. They would hear nothing about the rise in domestic terrorism and what the Justice Department is doing about it. They would hear nothing about what the department is doing to stop hate crimes and prevent gun violence. They would hear nothing about how the department is disrupting efforts by Russia, China, and others to interfere in our elections. Extreme MAGA Republicans have poisoned our vital oversight work. They've ignored our legitimate oversight responsibilities and used their power to stage one political stunt after another. They have wasted countless taxpayer dollars on basic...
Right, and we'll stop it there. But I think it's important, and credit to Jerry Nadler there for saying all that, to not only go through the specifics of what is absurd and then talk about why it's absurd, but also talk about how the absurdity distracts from other more important things. And so I think even more than a lot of shows on the left, I spend a lot of time going through the specifics of the Republican allegations against Biden that they're saying justify an impeachment inquiry, and about Hunter Biden, the connection or lack thereof of his business dealings to Joe Biden, and all the different things, and then walking through testimonies and the transcript of the Devon Archer thing, and trying to both understand what is being said about him, where it's inaccurate, where it's obviously a political attack, so that it's not just, I kind of know in a vague sense, Republicans are weaponizing their authority to levy these political attacks and not serious about governing effectively and solving problems in people's lives, especially House Republicans, but knowing exactly how and why. But spending a lot of time on that is great, as long as we also contextualize it and say, as Jerry Nadler did, okay, you're inaccurate, and also separate from your inaccuracy, all of what you're doing here is getting us away from and distracting from more important conversations we could be having, just as it pertains in this situation to the DOJ. He went through and listed, we could talk about all these other things, and Democrats try to insert that into the conversation, but if y'all had it your way, we wouldn't talk at all about all these other important subjects, just specifically when it comes to the DOJ that we could be talking about. Not to mention, more broadly, as I talk about, there's just a complete lack, an absence of real policies being put forward to improve the lives of Americans from the GOP. And so we don't spend time talking about, and possibly having to debate, but at least talking about policies that are aimed at helping people. And instead it's so much effort, so much resources, so much time spent on Hunter Biden and the political attacks against Joe Biden, while admitting, yeah, our impeachment inquiry is not necessarily justified because we don't have the impeachable offense, but we're going to find it in our inquiry. And that's separate from this particular thing, but a connected set of allegations. So pretty wild, and credit to Jerry Nadler. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show and get a bonus show on the weekends, you can do so by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. That's lukebeasleyshow.com/membership, and there's a link in the description.